Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you all here. I think I have one of the more difficult spots. I'm between you and cocktails, which is probably worse than being between you and lunch. So I'm going to try to keep my remarks short, but I wanted to comment as I was sitting here how far the IGF USA has come over the years. You know, when many of you first started this, it was a small group of people trying to figure out how to get this going, Marilyn Cade and a lot of people, and you know, I see some familiar faces, but I also see a lot of new faces, which I think is really encouraging, and kind of exactly the model and the whole point of this exercise is to bring new people and new ideas and new voices into the conversation. So I want to congratulate the organizers for really pulling that off. I think it's not an easy feat. As many of you know, the Internet Society is a long and strong supporter of the Internet Governance Forum and of local and regional IGFs happening all over the world. And we are because we believe that this model, this multi-stakeholder model, is the way to come together to discuss and to make progress on some of the most important issues facing the open and global Internet. We know that the multi-stakeholder model has proven itself as an effective tool for decision-making, and it is the foundation of the global and open Internet. But the multi-stakeholder model is not a religion. It is not a flag that you wave in the air. It is, in fact, a way of working that makes the Internet better. And I think we all have to keep that in mind when we engage in these discussions, that these are not just discussions for the sake of having discussions, but they are the discussions to move us forward, to move us towards solutions. Many of us in this room and in this community worked through a very successful multi-stakeholder process recently, and I understand I might be one of the first to raise this in this room, according to Steve, through the 2-year IANA transition process. We think that the IANA transition is a powerful demonstration that the best way to approach these challenges is through collaboration, commitment, and hard work over a long period of time. It was not easy. People were exhausted when it was over, but we think that the outcome put in place really a big step forward for the Internet. So we think we have a lot to celebrate when it comes to this model, and we think we have a lot of good successes to point to. But while all of this is certainly true, I think what I came here to say today is that we cannot take this model for granted. We cannot be complacent. We believe at the Internet Society that in some ways the multi-stakeholder model is a bit at risk. There are a range of issues, from cyber threats to fears about the implications of emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, that are causing a flurry of Internet policy activity at the global, regional, and local levels. There are serious issues at stake. We heard about a number of them here today. The spread of hate online and disinformation is undermining democratic systems around the globe. We see governments using the technology as a tool of warfare. These are no longer abstract problems that we can talk about as something happening out there. They are right here in front of us, and governments, industry, and yes, end users are demanding answers, and they're demanding action. Just last week, I was at a meeting in DC, down the street, where European parliamentarians were raising issues, genuine questions about how to deal with fake news. There are a lot of governmental solutions being put on the table. A number of us raised concerns with the recent German hate speech law, but the question back to us was, okay, you don't like the law, fine. Where do we go to have these conversations? Where is there a place that governments, industry, users, and others can come together to develop solutions? Does this sound familiar? In Europe, they see an urgent need, but they did not articulate that they see a place to go to have these conversations. The IGF did not come up. I think this is an interesting point we all need to take very seriously. There are big issues happening out in the world when it comes to the Internet, and we need to stand up and say that this model is an effective tool to tackle these issues. So the message I have with it for this community here, we are all committed to this model. We're here, we're having these conversations, but we cannot afford to be complacent. There's pressure from the usual suspects to put in place cyber sovereignty regimes in order to put the Internet under control. There are direct actions like Internet shutdowns and more subtle moves through places like the ITU and other regulatory processes that are happening today. There are challenges emerging in countries that we always thought were allied with our way of thinking. What is the answer to cyber terrorism? What are the responsibilities of global internet platforms? We believe that the multi-stakeholder model is strong enough, effective enough to help us tackle these tough questions. But at the same time as these crucial issues emerge, there is a sense that many are turning their attention elsewhere, that the internet governance debate is no longer as pertinent as it was during the days of the IANA transition or WSIS or WICIT. So we have to be careful that this community and our allies and governments around the world do not take the approach for granted. A few isolated success stories aren't enough. We can't allow a vacuum to form whereby the strong voices who traditionally defend the model go quiet. Advocating for this governance structure must be an ongoing priority. We need a re-energization, if that's a word, to step up and show innovative ways to address the very real issues that are emerging in the internet ecosystem. We should no longer have these conversations about how to organize ourselves. We need to put the model to work now. And so one thing that we have been talking about at the Internet Society is that we need to demonstrate the efficacy of the model. And the single most important thing we can do is practice what we preach at the local level. In short, the multi-stakeholder model should not be reserved for international policy discussions. We need to apply it to the domestic internet policy development processes here in the United States. In recent years, we've seen some step forward in this regard. NTIA, in addition to the IANA transition, has led a number of multi-stakeholder processes on privacy, Internet of Things, and other topics. But we need to go further than that. We need to examine whether there are innovative solutions both inside the government but also outside the government that can tackle these problems. Are the policy frameworks that we have today supportive enough of a multi-stakeholder process, or do we need reforms? What would the process multi-stakeholderism look like in the regulatory environment? Is there room to innovate on the policy side? It is our view that the U.S. can no longer rely on traditional regulatory processes to develop solutions that can keep pace with the technologies of the future. By demonstrating to the world that the model can be used effectively to find sustainable solutions to internet policy issues at the local level, the U.S. can once again lead by example. At ISOC, we don't have all the solutions to these questions, but we think that these are the kinds of things that the IGF USA could tackle theoretically in the next coming months. Maybe we could have this conversation at IGF USA next year, and the Internet Society would be delighted to be part of that conversation. So I will pause here, give you some food for thought to reflect on. I really do want to say that we see things happening out in the world, we see things happening in the US environment right here, right now, and we need voices like all of yours in the room to be heard, to stand up and say we need to be part of this process. Internet decisions are being made that affect all of us. And we can't sit back and go back to the way business was as usual because we had a few successes under our belt. So happy Monday. I hope you have an excellent rest of the meeting and cocktail this evening. Thanks.
Thanks, Sally. One last shout out is, I don't know if David, yours is still here. David, are you here? Okay, I'm sorry, David it was my vice chair. He's been going through all this for several years together, and he just wasn't feeling well this afternoon, so I think he decided to take off a little bit early. Thank you all for your patience, for your participation. To echo what Sally just said, multi-stakeholder means you need to show up and you need to participate, and a lot of you have done that, and I just want to encourage you to keep doing it. Now you can multi-stakeholder your way to a cocktail over, it's at Ankara Restaurant at 1320 19th Street, and this officially we are closed. Thank you.